Continuing with the tour in the Hilchos HaMoed, as a bit of an introduction, there is a machlokas in the Gemara between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi as to whether you can cut your fingernails or how you can cut your fingernails on the HaMoed. All right? And more than this, there is a machlokas amoraim as to who we paskin by, whether we paskin by Rabbi Yossi, as you would normally expect, or we paskin by Rabbi Yehuda, and so on. And so this spills over into today's minhagim, where some kehilas do cut fingernails in the Chol HaMoed, some do not. All right, so the Torah says, Mותר Litul Tzfranaim. You're allowed to cut your fingernails on Chol HaMoed. Lo shnad yad v'lo shnad regel. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about the nails of your fingers or of your feet. Upirush Rav Rabbeinu Yehuda davka besakhin. Rav Rabbeinu Yehuda says only with a knife, avalo b'misparim, but not with fingernail scissors. Verab Baruch mosif laasor afילו besakhin, and Rabbi Baruch says you can't even cut your fingernails with a knife. Velהרב התירו אפילו במספרים, and the Rif allowed it even with scissors. Veleze הסכים אבי אדיני הראש, and to this my father the Rosh agreed. And there's one other line in this סימן. I assume it's not related to what we've been doing. I assume it's here because he didn't want to make a סימן out of a one-line halacha, and that is kol rafua mutar b'chol HaMoed. All types of medicine, all types of going to doctors, surgeries, etc., are mutar and Chol HaMoed. There are no restrictions of Chol HaMoed like there are on Shabbos and Yom Tov. In general, Ashkenazim are machmir during Avelus and Chol HaMoed not to cut fingernails. It is the minhag of Ashkenazim to cut their fingernails and toenails before Yom Tov so that they don't have to cut them on the Chol HaMoed. And for the Shloshim, not to cut them as well, and that you get many, many shaylas on this as people get closer to the end of Shloshim and their fingernails are bothering them because they're so long. But unless it is a major tircha, the minhag of Ashkenazi poskim is to osir, and the minhag of Sephardim is, for most communities, not for all, this is just a general, is to allow cutting fingernails on both Chol HaMoed and during Avelus, but not during Shabbat. All right. Mutar lטחון קמח לצורך המועד. You're allowed to grind wheat into flour for the needs of Chol HaMoed or Yom Tov. I mean, if I don't have flour to bake challahs for the last days of Yontif or matzah. By the way, it's mashma from the Gemara and many Rishonim that they used to bake matzah every day for the needs of that day. And if you've had matzah immediately after it's baked, it's much, much better than the matzah that we have that was baked 6 months ago. Ve'afilo kiven mלאכתו במועד. Even if you intended to have to do this on Chol HaMoed, meaning I'm waiting to grind up my grain because it keeps better when it's grain rather than flour, so that I will grind grain fresh on Chol HaMoed, and I will bake fresh bread on Chol HaMoed. I'm allowed to cut trees that are still attached to the ground, and also I'm allowed to chop up wood to use for fire. V'lahatil sheichar bein shel tamarim bein shel sorim. I'm allowed to make beer, whether it be from dates or from hops. La'tzorech HaMoed. If it's for my use on Yontif, I mean it would have to be ready for me to be able to use on either Chol HaMoed or on Yontif itself. V'shelo la'tzorech HaMoed asur. But if you're doing it not for Chol HaMoed, meaning I got this stuff sitting around and I can't do anything on Chol HaMoed, and all the parks in Israel are completely overrun with people, so I don't like going touring on Chol HaMoed. So obviously it's the good time to make beer. It's asur. V'im asa la'tzorech HaMoed v'hotir mutter. And if I made for Yontif, and I assumed I'm having a big party on Simchas Torah, and they're going to drink 10 gallons, 20 gallons of beer, and in fact they only drank 12 gallons of beer, and I have 3 to 8 gallons left over, it's mutter. V'im yesh lo shechar yashan. If I have beer already, I have beer in my, I don't know what you make beer in, whatever it is, I have it there. Umarim lasos chadash. And I say, you know what, I want new beer. New beer tastes better. Omer chafetz yotzer b'chadash. I like my new beer better than I like my old beer. Kasav Rambam zal mutter. The Rambam writes it's mutter. You can do that as long as you drink the new beer. I mean, obviously I can't say I like the new beer better. So I put up the new beer on the first day of HaMoed. And then when it comes, Simchas Torah, I say, you know what? I'm going to take the old beer. That doesn't work. And my father, the Rosh, didn't bring this psak at all. It seems that he was machmir in this because there's a machlokas among the Tanaim whether I'm allowed to make beer at all on Yom Tov. Mutter lakor pishtan mipnei shiroi lachasos bo as ha'ochlim. I can harvest flax because unprocessed flax I can use for covering up food. Vilakor kushisa shiroi liטול bo shechar. I don't know what this stuff is, but I'm allowed to pick it in order to put it in my beer. La'tzorech HaMoed, because it's better this way, and it's a need of Yom Tov to have better food. Meaning, if I can have something that's okay, or even good, or I can have something that's excellent, I'm allowed to do the more work on Chol HaMoed, so that I have excellent stuff on Chol HaMoed and Yom Tov. V'yalakor shemim hayaveshim shebo ruim lechol miyad, to uproot sesame that it's dried and it's ready to eat immediately, or is mutter. Peiros shenishbash luktzas v'nechalim al yedei dechak mutter luklotan. Food that is not completely ripe but edible as it is, I'm allowed to harvest them. Kedei la'ochlan, in order to eat them. V'im laktan la'ochlan v'hotir. If you gathered them to eat and you gathered more than you need, v'choshe shema yetliu, when you're afraid, I've eaten, we've had our meal, and I've got left over, and I'm afraid it will become buggy. The bugs will attack it. Im lo yich b'shem, if I do not pickle it, lahotzi leicha shebehem, to get out the liquid of it, or one of the ways they pickled things, we would call it salting, is just putting salt on it. Takes out the liquid, allows it to be preserved for a long time. Yachol l'kavsham, I'm allowed to pickle them. And you can pickle them in other ways too, in liquids like we do, and so on. Aval aser l'kotam techila kadei l'kovsham, but I'm not allowed to harvest on Chol HaMoed in order to pickle it. Right? Tough. V'ken mater l'tzud dagim la'ochlam v'l'chvosh im hotir mehem. I'm allowed to go out and fish, use fish nets, catch, eat, and what's left over after I've eaten, I can pickle it. Aval aser l'tzudam or liknosam kedei l'kovsham, but I'm not allowed to go out. I don't want fish today. I don't even want fish tomorrow. But it's a good time to go fishing because, I got lots of time on my hands in Chol HaMoed. So I'll go out and catch fish and pickle them. Herring, right? Schmaltz herring. Pickled herring and wine sauce, all these wonderful things. Elim kan ruim lechol mehem b'moed, unless you can eat them on moed. Umihu afilu einan ruim ela al yedei adchak mutter. But even if it's only with difficulty you could eat them, meaning they're not really completely pickled as you like them yet, it would still be mutter. V'kan kol davar aser lekavsho elim kan roy lechol mimenu b'moed. And so too with everything, it's prohibited to pickle it unless you could eat it by the end of Yom Tov. אבל אם הוא דבר שאינו נמצא אחר המועד, מותר לקנוסו לכובשו. However, if I have something that will not be found in the United States and to a much more limited fact in Israel, things are available for much longer periods of time than they were classically. If you go back, to my mother's memory, I don't remember it, but my mother certainly does, when fruits and vegetables had real seasons,
Yeah.
right?
You didn't go to Argentina and go pick it up in the winter.
Right. I mean, there's a season, and once the season's over, you don't have any more of it. So women used to pickle all sorts of things that we don't pickle anymore, right? And they used to make jams and preserves. Almost all women did this. Made jams and preserves so that you have these things when they're not available. So the season for whatever fruit or vegetable it is now, and by the end of Yontif, the good ones aren't there anymore, right? So in that case, I'm allowed because it's a davar ha'aved. It's something that I will lose, I won't have. Therefore, I'm allowed to do it. And remember, a lot of these things are really very important for our health. If you read histories of people, the people that settled the United States, what are they called? I can't remember the word right now. Not pilgrims. The people that went west and settled the frontier and so on. They, in their wagons, they would always have a huge, 50-gallon drum of pickles. Why? Because you needed the vitamin C in the pickles to not get scurvy, right? I mean, so, and they didn't have the ability to, go to the local Safeway or Colbo or Supersol or whatever it is, AMP, to buy, and they're in the middle of the plains of, Oklahoma, some fresh fruits and vegetables. They had what they had pickled and with them. And so these things, if you don't buy it in its season, you won't have it. And this can be not only a problem in terms of the variety of your food, but it can conceivably affect your health if you don't have enough variety without this. Tzadei chaya ve'ov, people that trap wild animals and birds. Tzadin b'tzina, they have to do it tzina, not publicly. La'tzorech HaMoed, for the needs of the moed. V'ken kotshei chitim, lasos daisa, and so too people that crush wheat to make cereals out of it. Think of wheat, think of oatmeal is a crushed grain of oats. V'tochane pulin lasos krusos, and this is also partially crushed. They talk about it being broken into 3 pieces. Nase b'tzina l'tzorech moed. You're allowed to do it only privately for the needs of the moed. Meaning, I can't say, again, I'm not working this week. I can, store up a month's worth of stuff of this stuff, right? No, that you can't do. You can only make enough that's needed for Yom Tov. It could be, I'll take a situation. I am a merchant in this stuff, and people come to buy from me all the time, right? I have in my warehouse, I could still grind it for what people are going to buy today, right? That's the tzorech moed. They're buying it today because they need it today. I'm not allowed to buy food. Ideally, everything you can buy before moed, you should, and what you can't for some reason, like things that would go bad, or wouldn't be as good if they're not fresh, so you can buy in HaMoed, but you can only buy in HaMoed those things you're using for HaMoed in the last days of Yom Tov. You can't, again, unless it won't be there later. But today, I don't think we really have a problem of it. This is the season for it. Next week, we're not going to have it. Ein mechabsin b'moed. We don't do laundry on Chol HaMoed. A lot of the reasons for this were really tircha, that it was a great effort to do laundry. When I talked to my grandmothers about doing laundry before washing machines existed, even though they had various things that they used by hand, that squeezed out the garments and spun them around a little bit, it still was nowhere near having a washing machine. So that has to be understood while we're talking about these things. And the reason is the same as it is for getting a haircut. And these are the ones that the Mishnah says are allowed to wash clothing on HaMoed. Someone that's returned from abroad. He was kidnapped and he's been ransomed. He's been released from prison. And a person that was in Cherem, who the Chachamim released him. Because someone that's in Cherem is not allowed to wash their clothes. And someone that made a nether not to have their clothes washed or wash their clothes, and they were materit for him on HaMoed. None of these people had the ability to wash their clothing before Yontif. By the way, again, this may be different for us, meaning if you have a few hours before Yontif, in today's world, you can throw stuff in the washer, throw it in the dryer, right?
And it's ready.
And it's ready. Whereas, 75, 100 years ago, this may not be a possibility, right? To the prishis le'il gabe tiglachas, like we've explained above concerning getting a haircut. Umitpachas yadayim, hand towels. She'afilu im kav sam kodem aregel chozrin mislach lachlin. They get dirty. I mean, you dry your hands on them a number of times, and they're not so nice anymore. So even though they were clean before Yontif, you may have to clean them. You may have to wash them again on HaMoed. Again, most people today have multiple sets of hand towels that they can change them several times and save them until after Yom Tov. If you don't, then it would certainly be mutter to launder them. But for most people, we have multiples of these things, and we can survive without laundering them. Mitpachas hashmarim notnim alehem k'shemisparim, and the smock that a barber puts upon someone when he's giving them a haircut. Now, obviously, these get dirty, so they have to be clean. I mean, I don't know how many haircuts he's giving on HaMoed, but it could be he's someone that doesn't have a parnasa and he's giving haircuts to non-Jews or that or whatever. Or he's giving 50 people were released from prison, so he's got to give 50 haircuts. I don't know. Ve'es de garse hasfarim v'hamitpachos hasafganim shemistabkim behem kashiyotzim mibeis medrash. And there are some people that say these are the things that we use for cleaning up when we leave the beis medrash. Ubigdei ketanim, and children's clothing. When you're talking about young children, the kol klei pishtan, and all flax things, mutarim lechabshon, you're allowed to wash them. V'kasa v'yadni rosh zal v'lo hagin ken ve'ein lahatiran. The Rosh says it is not our minhag to wash these things, and one should not allow people to wash these things. I think that what the Rosh said is generally true today, other than small children's, toddlers, babies' clothing, that a baby can spit up on their clothing and have to be changed 10 times a day, and unless you're, I don't know who, you may not have, it's highly unlikely that you will have enough changes of clothing for your toddler for all of HaMoed and Yontif. Umisha ein lo ela chaluk echad, and someone who only has one shirt. Ve'afilu en elo eino shel pishtan, even it's not flax. Mutter lechabso. It's mutter for him to wash it. Shumislach lech miyad. It gets dirty. I mean, you have one shirt, it gets dirty. Got to do things. Ve'afim kavso kodem lechan. Even if you washed it before. U'b'sefer mitzvah sekatan. This is the commonly known as the smak. Amar ele imken ezuro mochiach alav. This is a lashon in the Gemara that his belt shows that he's doesn't have anything else. For other parents, hosif li'isur b'chol chalukim shelanu. He prohibited washing all of our clothing. Shein lanu ezor mochiach alav. We do no longer have this ezor mochiach alav, this belt that proves it. It was more than a belt. I don't know what it was, but it was something that he would wear instead of his shirt or robe that would show that he doesn't have anything proper to wear right now. And so people would know when they saw him washing his cloak that he's doing it because he only has the one, and otherwise he's wearing this thing. We don't have such a thing. The kolsh can mi she'ein lo ela mapa echad. Only has one hand towel, or sadin echad. He only has one sheet. She'ein lo lechabso the leka hakera. He can't wash it because you don't know that he only has one. Leka hakera klal. There's no way to understand this. Ve'aviad nirosh zal hevi memra de Rabbi Yochanan she'ein lo ela chaluk echad chulu. So the Rosh only brings the statement of Rabbi Yochanan that someone that only has one piece of clothing is allowed to wash it on HaMoed, and he does not bring this idea that you have to be dressed in the meantime while your clothes are being washed, that will show that the reason why you're doing this is because you only have the one cloak. We're on to another subject that I'm not sure how it's related to the one that we just did. I ordered. Now, today we have what was rare in the time of the Gemara. Almost all our kelim are what we would call clay and puria. Commercially produced, factory produced things that there are thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of identical items, right? Your pot, there are other people with the same sets of pots and pans. Your silverware, other people have identical silverware. However, classically this was not true. A silversmith would make silver, or whatever it is, would almost all of your kelim would be custom made to order, right? Mm-hmm. So if I ordered it from the craftsman, right, and he sends me a note, it's ready, right? Then la'tzoרך HaMoed. If it's something that I need for Yontif, I'm going to use it. You're supposed, ideally, the biggest hitter that post can talk about is having a gold Kiddush cup. So I ordered, I'm now rich enough, I ordered from the goldsmith a gold Kiddush cup. All right, fine. He says it's ready. I can get the gold Kiddush cup in HaMoed because I can use it on the last days of Yontif, right? And it'll be a big hitter. Or even if I'm getting a silver one or whatever it is, I can use such a thing, right? However, if I ordered a new plow for my tractor, I cannot use the plow on HaMoed. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. Yachol aviyam lebeso. If it's for the Tzorech HaMoed, I can bring it home. V'imena l'Tzorech HaMoed, lo yaviyim. And if it's not, if I don't need it for Yontif, leave it there. I'll pick it up after Yontif is over. V'im ein le'umen ma'lechol. What if the craftsman, he's a poor guy, right? He lives hand to mouth, which was true of most people, what my grandparents described from Europe, that was the way people lived, almost everyone. Even relatively wealthy people didn't have much in the way of reserves. No sein lo scharo, umeniach etzlo. Pay him for his work, right? Because he's allowed to work on HaMoed. Pay him for his work and leave it, and I'll pick it up after Yontif. V'im eno mamino, if I don't trust the guy. Once I paid him, I don't trust that he's not going to turn my silver Kiddush cup into someone else's silver Kiddush cup. Take it away and put it by his neighbors who, that I know and trust, they lived in small communities. Ve'im yireh shema yignevu misham, and if it's not such a wonderful neighborhood and you're afraid it might be stolen from there, mafnin misham l'makom harishon hamishmer. Take it to the closest place that's guarded, but they do not allow you to take it home. Meaning, bring it all the way in. I can put, if I don't have any other place, I can take it to my friend's house and he can keep it for me. But to bring it home, something that I don't need on Yantif, for HaMoed or for Yantif, that you're not allowed to do. You gotta wait until after Yantif to get it home. I urge you to have a great